Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today in this session called Transparency, Accountability, and Participation, which innovations for improving quality and efficiency of utilities. My name is Julie Perkins, and I'm with the Global Water Operators Partnerships Alliance Secretariat here in Bonn. This is one of over 30 sessions that is happening within the 2-week frame of the Global Water Operators Partnerships, Global WAPS Congress, that started on the 18th and is going until the 29th, but whose outcomes are available online for eternity. So please check them out if you can. This is a session on governance, and before I pass it over to our hosts to introduce everyone, just a couple points of housekeeping so you understand how this platform works if you're new to it. First of all, if you would like interpretation, it's available in English, French, or Spanish on the right-hand side of your screen. Something a little bit specific about this platform is that when you turn on the interpretation, it comes on top of the original voice, so you can control that by adjusting the volume within the main screen. It helps you be able to focus on the interpreted language. In addition, please take advantage of the chat that is to the bottom right-hand side of the video. You need to sign into that, and I recommend you do that with your email or social media account. It's very quick, and we'd really like to hear from you. So please do that if you can. Okay, without any further ado, I am handing over to Dr. Anne Lestrade, who is a long-standing expert in water and sanitation, and who most notably worked for over 13 years with the city of Paris as deputy mayor and at the head of Eau de Paris. Over to you, Anne.
So thank you very much, Julie. So my pleasure to introduce this session. So supply, tarification, investment, and financing issues are always at the forefront of the challenges raised by operators, and not so much governance. However, this issue is absolutely crucial to meet the challenges often faced by services. So it's not only technical or operational aspects that ensure efficiency and quality of the service. Transparency, accountability, and participation are key elements for a good governance. In that context, which actors can and should play a role? What are the decision-making and participation processes that can be put in place? Which innovation and concrete tools are needed? These are some of the questions that will be raised and debated by the panelists. So let me introduce the panel for this session. We have a very interesting diversity of background and experiences embodied by all the speakers and the moderator. So first, we have Barbara Schreiner, excuse me for the pronunciation, is the executive director of the Water Integrity Network. She has been active on a number of international boards in the water sector, with an over 25 years of experience in water management in developing countries, and particularly in Africa, with a focus on good governance and addressing poverty, inequality, gender, and other forms of social and economic marginalization. After Barbara, we will have Benjamin Gestin, has been serving as a general manager at Eau de Paris, the public water utility of the city of Paris, very close to my heart, since December 2016, and throughout his career as a member of the French Senior Civil Service. He held many positions in the public sector in the French Ministry of Culture, the French Embassy in India, and the National Center for Monuments. After Benjamin, we will have Myriam Planas. She works as a water campaign manager in the NGO Engenheira Sem Fronteiras. She's a spokesperson for Aigua es Vida, a Catalan platform that campaigns to municipalize water in the Barcelona region. and bring it back to the public and citizen control. She is also a member of the Spanish platform, Red Agua Publica, and the European Water Movement. After Miriam, we will have Georgos Sakinis. He's the Director of Strategy and Innovation at EDAP, Athens Water Supply and Sewerage Company, coordinated the company's strategy and new ventures, and managing many activities. And one of his projects is the innovative and integrated use of the Roman Hadrian Aqueduct of Athens. He also represents EDAP in the steering committee of GWAPA. And after Georgos, we will have Lisa Reudenbach, worked at the United Nations in Brussels, where she worked in the United Nations in Brussels, where she managed an innovation fund for promoting inclusive cities and urban poverty reduction before joining the City Science Lab at Hafen City University, Hamburg, as a researcher. Lisa is currently part of the UNITAC Hamburg team, working on digital innovation for advancing sustainable urban development. And last but not least, our moderator for the panel session, he's David Boyce. He's the Deputy General Secretary of Public Services International, PSI, a global trade union federation. And David is a recognized authority in the water sector and was a member of the UN Secretary General's Advisory Board on Water and Sanitation, where he helped steer the concept of public-public partnerships, which UN Secretary General Kofi Annan mandated UN Habitat to implement, and it's GWAPA. So thank you all. And please, Barbara Schreiner, if you can share your screen and present your presentation, PowerPoint presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Anne. Hopefully I can share my screen. It worked when I tried practicing it. So let's see if it works now. Are you getting my shared screen?
Yes, we are.
Excellent, excellent. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And let me talk to you a little bit about issues of integrity in the water sector, which is really what the transparency, accountability, and participation hopefully adds up to. The Water Integrity Network is focused on trying to drive integrity and reduce the risk of corruption in the water and sanitation sector. In 2016, we brought out something called the Water Integrity Global Outlook, which looked at corruption in water and sanitation and proposed routes to integrity. And this year we brought out WeGo 2021, which updates this work with a focus on urban water and sanitation. And what I'm going to talk about is some of the stuff that is captured in that report and that comes out of our work as well. Firstly, let me say that the issue of integrity is a critical one for water operators. The integrity risks are very high for water and sanitation operators. It's a natural monopoly, technically complex projects, expensive infrastructure, high initial capital and maintenance costs, large teams of people, often fragmented governance and accountability, all of which adds up to an environment in which there are significant integrity risks. If you flip that around, integrity can be a driver of improved performance for water operators, associated with increased efficiency, improved service delivery, higher employee satisfaction, customer engagement, and compliance. So I think there was reference earlier to the issues of finance that are so important to water operators. And often when we talk about lack of integrity and corruption in water and sanitation, we're concerned about the financial impact of it. In WeGo 2021, the figures are that it can be up to 26%, but it's very hard to put a figure to it. It may, in many circumstances, be more than that. But the real implications of poor integrity and high corruption are poor quality, delayed, or even missing infrastructure, are poor health and mortality and arising from poor service delivery, loss of economic productivity, lack of trust between water users and government, environmental costs, and even possibly maladaptation to climate change. And so the real costs of poor integrity in the sector are in fact enormous.
Barbara,
Yes.
Barbara, can I interrupt? You've got a little bubble on your screen there that tells us you're sharing your screen. Is there a way for you to get rid of that little bubble, please?
Does that
And
help?
second, well, that's better. Secondly, if I could ask you to slow down a bit, I'll give you a minute or two, but I've got to assume that the interpreters are racing to keep up with you. Thank you.
Sorry, I will. It's one of my faults. I speak too fast. The translators did get the slides yesterday, so I hope that they're coping. But yes, I will slow down a bit. So just quickly but slowly, some examples of integrity failures that we've seen around, and I'm sure people have themselves much more experience in this as well. Los Angeles in the USA, in 2013, the Department of Water and Power introduced a new billing system, which resulted in residents getting inaccurate or delayed water bills, some of which were massively inflated. This being the United States, there was a class action lawsuit that followed with a settlement in 2017. From that settlement, the city committed to repay $67 million to their customers. But then it turned out that two key lawyers in the case had actually been working for both sides, for the city and the class action plaintiffs. And there were allegations, if you can believe this, that the city had deliberately engineered this situation in order to get a better settlement for themselves. That gave rise to a new lawsuit in which the city was charged with attempting to cover up collusion in the 2017 settlement. And the allegations included that the city had conducted a fraudulent ethics review, that there was a non-competitive award of contracts to companies associated with one of the lawyers, and possible crimes including bribery, kickbacks, extortion, mail fraud, and money laundering. Now what's happened? Have you lost my screen, guys?
We have.
Don't know quite how that happened. Let's try again. Have you got my screen again?
No.
No? Okay. I think perhaps I'll just keep talking without you being able to see my screen then, in the interests of time and not fighting too much with the technology. If we look at Nairobi in Kenya, there's a situation where the formal water operator supplies water to kiosks on the edge of the informal settlements. Informal water operators then supply water from these kiosks to residents. Unfortunately, what's happened is that in many of the large informal settlements, this water supply has been captured by cartels or water mafia. And there's widespread suspicion that, in fact, some of the public employees have been involved in facilitating this. The result is that the residents are paying much higher prices for water than residents in informal areas. And what we're seeing is that there's been a failure to meet the human right to water and sanitation in the informal settlements, and that there's been a failure of regulation of the supply of water by informal providers in relation to cost, quality, and reliability. And instead, there's been corruption and extortion by cartels. In defense of the Kenyan regulator, they are now looking at issues of how to deal with this and how to regulate informal providers. Another issue that we're seeing around failure of integrity and indeed corruption in the last mile, in the poorest of the poor, is the whole issue of sextortion or sex for water, and women having to actually obtain access to water through paying with their bodies. A study done again in Kibera in Nairobi by the African Network on Water, Civil Society Network on Water, shows that women are faced with situations where they have to offer sex as a payment for water services in order to try and make ends meet, where they have to consent for sex as a payment for water services, or where when they refuse to offer payment as sex for water, they actually get denied access to water. There are also issues of rape, of attempted rape, of all sorts of other forms of gender-based violence happening in relation to the provision of water in informal settlements that women are facing. So it's clear that improved integrity is needed. it's also clear from the work we've done that improved integrity actually results in improved service delivery. Looking at the case of the Khulna Water Supply and Sewerage Authority in Bangladesh, they launched an integrity change process in 2015 in which they applied WIN's integrity management toolbox and InWash tool. And as a result of this integrity change process, they're now seeing more transparency, accountability, and participation in their operations. They have seen management process changes. They have seen reductions in delay between water connection request and connection. They've seen the digitalization of their billing, improvements in billing delivery, regularization of unmetered connections, the introduction of an e-procurement system, which is a good tool for reducing potential corruption, and as a result, reduced opportunities for corruption, both at high levels and low levels within the utility. And it's contributed to their revenue generation and their business viability. If we look at another innovative tool, and Anne was talking about innovative tools for improving integrity, we have put together something called the Water and Sanitation Integrity Risk Index, which is designed for use at the city level. And it provides an objective measure of corruption risk in the urban water and sanitation, not of actual corruption, but of corruption risk, of vulnerability to corruption. And it's structured around three areas: investment risk, operation risk, and client utility interactions. And it uses big data to put together the necessary information. The ratings in each of those three areas are combined to create a composite WIRI score. It's called the WIRI Risk Index. And this allows the risks to be compared between cities and over time. And in fact, the work that we have done looking at 12 cities currently shows quite fortunately that in fact the corruption risks have been reducing over time, and cities are getting water and sanitation sections in cities are getting a better handle on how to deal with these issues. Then just to go into the issue of procurement, which is a weak point for corruption and integrity failures. The Open Contracting Partnership has been promoting e-procurement practices, including a specific format for data sharing called the Open Contracting Data Standard. And COST, which is the initiative, the Infrastructure Transparency Initiative, has developed an infrastructure data standard linked to the OCDS, which is now called the OCDS/IDS, which is focused on transparent reporting of infrastructure development in order to get the information out there so that infrastructure development can actually be held accountable. We are now working with COST on this process to look at how we can develop an infrastructure data standard specific to the water and sanitation sector, so that around infrastructure development in the water and sanitation sector, there can be structured transparency, and as a result, much improved accountability in terms of infrastructure projects. And then the last thing to say is that a lot of this information is captured in WeGo 2021, which is very much focused on finding solutions. There are 4 parts to WeGo 2021. The first is, why is integrity important? The second looks at corruption and integrity failures in urban water and sanitation and some of their drivers, looking at corruption in the management of public resources, at corruption in the community institution interface, and then a particular focus on issues of integrity failures and equity and development, and focusing on integrity issues as they pertain to informal settlements. And then part 3 is around the solutions, around what can be done to advance integrity. And it's structured around looking at the city level, looking at what national governments can do, what sector regulators can do, what utilities can do, what international funders and agencies can do, and what residents, civil society, and the media can do. And it ends with a call to action around the fact that really we need to improve the integrity in the water and sanitation sector in order to actually meet SDG 6 and meet the last mile of the really vulnerable and marginalized. And that, I think, is the end of my presentation. And I'm sorry that you only got to see half of it, but better half than nothing.
Thank you very much, Barbara. And of course, apologies to the interpreters for this fast machine gun speed.
Sorry.
I trust they are keeping up, and we'll try to give them a breath while they absorb it, get ready for the next. Look, some of the things, Barbara, I'm not going to ask you to answer now, but some of the things that I want to swing back around to in the comment period. We know that corruption happens where there's money, and big corruption happens where there's big money. What about money from the World Bank and other regional IFIs? Is there any cooperation with them to ensure that the money they send to the national government for subnational municipal utilities actually reaches the utilities? Then I'm wondering if your research shows the connection between the salaries and working conditions of workers and the incidence of corruption. And finally, there's always the question of whistleblower protection, because we know those who blow the whistle are the first ones attacked, and generally they have zero protection. But as I said, I'll let you sit on those questions while we move to the next speaker. And if I'm not mistaken, are we going to try to get Benjamin in? Maybe Anne is listening in French. But I have Benjamin Gestin from Eau de Paris. Anne has already introduced him, but we've been having some technical glitches with reaching Benjamin. So, Benjamin, si tu es là, tu nous fais signe. Sinon, je passe à la prochaine. Et elle a été prévenue. So unless we hear from Benjamin in the next 10, 15 seconds, I'm going to ask Miriam to start. And you've had an introduction to all of our speakers, so I won't repeat it. But please, Miriam, if you're ready, I know you will speak slowly for the interpreters. And so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, David. I'm gonna share my presentation and I'm gonna swap to Spanish. So I'm telling you in English, so you have time to change for the translators.
No, go ahead, please.
Now it's not working. Sharing screen. Wait, now I had it. Lo tenía bloqueado, ahora he conseguido desbloquearlo.
Miriam, our technicians will. Oh, you've got it. Okay, good.
Vale, sí, ya lo tengo. Creo que ahora podéis ver la presentación. David.
Sí, estamos pronto.
Perfecto.
Por favor.
Bueno, como solo tenemos 10 minutos, yo quería empezar hablando un poco de cómo entendemos la participación, ¿no? Anne me ha presentado, desde Ingeniería Sin Fronteras trabajamos con diferentes redes. La más cercana y local es Aigua es Vida, la plataforma a nivel catalán, desde la cual promovemos remunicipalizaciones, ¿no? Y siempre decimos que para nosotros no es suficiente una gestión pública, sino que necesitamos nuevos modelos de gobernanza que nos permitan conseguir acceso a la información, transparencia, rendición de cuentas y participación. Así que yo estuve muy contenta cuando recibí una invitación, ¿no?, de Anne, para participar en esta sesión, porque es algo a lo que le hemos estado dando muchas vueltas, ¿no? Y siempre nos gusta empezar hablando desde dónde partimos y de cuál es la necesidad de la participación. Y yo quería empezar la presentación reflexionando un poco sobre este tema porque creo que el análisis que hacemos es un análisis que también sirve a nivel global, ¿no? El mismo análisis que hacemos a nivel catalán o con la red de agua pública a nivel estatal o con el movimiento europeo a nivel del agua a nivel europeo. Y siempre hablamos de que nos encontramos en una situación de crisis sobrepuestas, donde tenemos una crisis climática y ambiental, una emergencia, ¿no?, climática que ya lleva años. Hace 2 años se sobrevino una crisis sanitaria global que hoy en día sigue vigente y que además está desembocando en una crisis social que ya existía, pero que se está agudizando en muchos países debido a esta crisis sanitaria y también una crisis democrática global a nivel de instituciones, confianza en las instituciones, en la política. Y creemos que es por estas tres, por esta situación de crisis sobrepuestas que la participación, la gobernanza, el acceso a la información es más necesaria que nunca para poder transitar de esta situación de crisis a situaciones donde podamos tener más información y más empoderamiento para construir nuevas formas de gestionar también el agua, ¿no?, y el resto de servicios públicos. La necesidad de participación ha sido recogida en numerosas normativas a nivel mundial y también en informes más recientes, ¿no? Tenemos el convenio de Aarhus, que nos habla del derecho de acceso a la información ambiental y también el derecho de acceso a la justicia y a la participación, y tenemos los criterios comunes del derecho humano al agua y al saneamiento, donde se apunta a la necesidad de trabajar por el acceso a la información, la transparencia, rendición de cuentas. Y más recientemente tenemos 2 informes, el primero sobre agua y cambio climático del año 2020, donde se indica que la gestión climática y la gestión hídrica requieren de mecanismos de supervisión y participación, donde tiene que haber más participación pública para poder debatir y gestionar el riesgo climático y poder construir así una capacidad de adaptación a múltiples niveles y dar prioridad a los grupos vulnerables y a la reducción de su riesgo. También en el informe sobre derecho humano al agua y privatización, el último informe del anterior relator del derecho humano al agua, apuntaba en algunas de las salvaguardas, ¿no?, posibles frente a los procesos de privatización, que en su informe hablaba de que producían un riesgo para el cumplimiento del derecho humano al agua. Proponía como salvaguardas el crear organismos autónomos controlados por la ciudadanía que tuvieran que ser consultados antes de cualquier proceso de privatización. Además antes de entrar en cómo hacer esta participación, siempre nos preguntamos, ¿no?, pero ¿qué es la participación? Porque se ha hablado mucho de participación en los últimos años, está muy presente en muchísimos informes, pero lo que vemos, ¿no?, en esta escalera que os muestro, que aunque está en castellano, espero que podáis más o menos entender los conceptos que se ilustran. Estoy conectada, ¿verdad, David? Sí, vale, porque he escuchado un sonido en el ordenador. Espero que podáis entender un poco los conceptos, ¿no? Porque un poco lo que muestra esta escalera es que en 1969 Sherry Arnstein presentaba esta escala para medir la participación ciudadana, ¿no?, donde hablaba desde una participación que no era participación, manipulación, terapia, pasando por una participación de fachada, donde podíamos hablar de información, consulta, asesoría, ¿no?, que es lo que se hace en la mayoría de procesos de participación, hasta unos niveles de participación donde realmente se delegaba el poder ciudadano, ¿no? Se empezaba a ejercer poder ciudadano y ahí se habla de colaboración, de control ciudadano, de delegación de poder. esta es la participación que desde los movimientos nos interesa, ¿no? Nos interesa desde el movimiento del agua, nos interesa empezar a concebir con organismos como el Observatorio de Terrassa, que se creó en Cataluña, en la ciudad de Terrassa, después de su remunicipalización en el año 2017, y que están explorando, ¿no? Un poco inspirados por otras experiencias como el Observatorio de París, Observatorio de Montpellier y otros observatorios que se habían puesto en marcha, y también por todo el relato y todo el discurso que venía de América Latina de la lucha en contra de la privatización durante el año 2000, donde tenía que integrarse la ciudadanía en la toma de decisiones estratégicas de los operadores públicos, pues es en esta parte de la escalera que nos interesa empezar a pensar. Lo que pasa es que lo que nos encontramos es que los informes más recientes, esta escalera es de 1969, este aspecto de la participación pública, la segunda escalera es del 2000 y la tercera es de 2010, lo que nos encontramos es que cada vez el discurso sobre qué es la participación se va reduciendo más y se ciñe simplemente a una participación que le diríamos de fachada, es decir, para cumplir, pero no realmente para que la ciudadanía pueda involucrarse y tomar realmente decisiones estratégicas sobre el servicio, que es lo que creemos que puede ser emancipador y puede servir para responder a estas crisis en las que nos encontramos, ¿no? Crisis que solo podrán ser solventadas si tomamos decisiones conjuntamente con los sectores vulnerables, que son los más afectados y los que saben más lo que necesitan, o tomamos conjuntamente con la ciudadanía, que pueda separarse de ciertos poderes que quieren defender intereses económicos o otro tipo de intereses que no son el bien común. A raíz de las experiencias que hemos tenido en Cataluña, el Observatorio del Agua de Terrassa y también otros observatorios que se están poniendo en marcha a nivel catalán, en otras ciudades más pequeñas, Girona, en Osona, también en Barcelona, estamos pensando cómo podría ser un observatorio del agua. Desde Ingeniería Sin Fronteras decidimos encargar un análisis, un estudio a la Hidra Cooperativa para ver cómo podrían ser unos principios con mirada ecofeminista, ¿no? Tanto por la parte ambiental como por la parte feminista, que guiaran la gestión del agua, ¿no? Porque al final, cuando tú tienes un servicio que es de titularidad pública y que responde al bien común, tiene que ser guiado por unos principios. Y queríamos ver cómo podían ser unos principios ecofeministas, y yo quería compartiroslos porque creo que a partir de aquí podemos reflexionar sobre cómo tienen que ser los mecanismos, ¿no? Pero empezar por a qué principios tienen que responder y sobre qué temas estratégicos tenemos que discutir y hablar en los organismos de participación, sobre qué tiene que haber acceso a la información y un poco cómo se equilibran los diferentes poderes dentro de los procesos de participación, desde la administración, el operador, la ciudadanía. Entonces, la propuesta contenía 4 principios. El primero es economía para la vida. David me dice que me quedan 5 minutos, hace 2 minutos, me quedan 3.
3, sí. 3.
Entonces, la primera pregunta, ¿no? Las primeras preguntas que deberíamos responder con los principios y con el principio de economía para la vida es ¿para qué abastecemos de agua y para quién, ¿no? Y estas son preguntas en las que la ciudadanía tiene mucho que decir. A veces no sabemos, pero hay que pensar cuáles son esas decisiones estratégicas de un operador, de un servicio de agua, en las que realmente tiene sentido, ¿no? O qué contratación se está haciendo de la cadena de suministro de la que hablaba Bárbara, ¿no? Que era un punto sensible. ¿Qué criterios ambientales y qué criterios sociales se están poniendo en la contratación de la empresa para que realmente esta economía sirva para la vida y no para lucrarse, que es lo que pasa en muchas situaciones? El segundo bloque sería el conocimiento situado, ¿no? Esta es una expresión que viene del movimiento feminista y que quiere reforzar no solo el conocimiento experto, que es en el que nos movemos, ¿no? En el campo de la gestión del agua, ¿no? La ingeniería, sino qué otros conocimientos tenemos que incluir también y cómo creamos mecanismos para compartir y crear este conocimiento más amplio, ¿no? Y cómo incluimos no solo innovación técnica y experta, sino innovación social, como son estos organismos de participación. Cómo introducimos tecnologías abiertas, conocimientos abiertos. Yo tenía muchas ganas de escuchar a Benjamin porque sé que desde Aguas de París se ha trabajado el tema de la open data, y cómo introducimos también tecnologías digitales para poder promover la participación en una escala como puede ser el área metropolitana de Barcelona, donde no estás hablando de 100 habitantes o de comunidades, sino tenemos que pensar cómo hacemos mecanismos digitales que existen, herramientas como el de SIDIM, que se utiliza mucho en Barcelona y sé que se utiliza también en otros países de Europa, ¿no? Que son espacios digitales donde se pueden hacer procesos de participación estratégicos. Otra pregunta sería también cómo financiamos la participación, que esta la dejo para el debate. Si generamos organismos autónomos, ¿cómo los pagamos? El servicio del agua debe cubrir estos organismos autónomos porque al final sirven para que podamos tener unos servicios más eficientes y de más calidad y realmente que sirvan a la ciudadanía, ¿no? Y que cubran las necesidades de todas y no las necesidades o unos intereses concretos y determinados que son los que tienen el poder. Y los dos últimos bloques sería, los hago muy rápido, ¿no? Ecodependencia, cómo pensamos que el operador, ¿no? Que el servicio de agua puede ayudar a resolver o mejorar o implementar medidas que nos ayuden a adaptarnos al cambio climático, ¿no? Que hacemos aguas arriba, de dónde vienen las fuentes de abastecimiento, cómo las mejoramos, cómo devolvemos el agua. Todo esto, la ciudadanía tiene que participar y tiene que ser partícipe. Al menos en Barcelona tenemos mucho camino para recorrer para que la gente, el ciudadano de Barcelona, sepa de dónde viene el agua. En Barcelona estamos rodeados de 2 ríos y nadie sabe si el agua viene de un río del otro o viene de un río que está más arriba, ¿no? Hay mucho camino por hacer ahí y mucha información para traspasar a la ciudadanía en este sentido. Y por último, el reto yo creo más importante es cómo nos implementamos y ponemos en marcha nuevas gobernanzas público-comunitarias, ¿no? Donde tengamos comunidades activas, responsables, que puedan formar parte de las decisiones estratégicas, ¿no? Y cómo implementamos la equidad de género, ¿no? Y propuestas del movimiento de organizaciones ecofeministas, ¿no? De repartir el poder, de cargo rotativo, de que no se acumule el poder en ciertas figuras para realmente poder tender a tener unos procesos de participación y al final unos procesos de gobernanza más equitativos y que puedan ser innovadores, porque al final esto es lo que me salto un montón de diapositivas que quedarán disponibles. Esto al final es lo que va a ayudar a mejorar la legitimidad social, ¿no? De los operadores públicos de agua y de la administración pública. Nosotros pensamos que es así como vamos a luchar también contra este riesgo de corrupción, dando información, teniendo transparencia, equilibrando el poder entre la ciudadanía y la ciudadanía activa y la toma de decisiones, ¿no? Incorporando a la ciudadanía a la toma de decisiones. Y así creemos sin duda que la calidad de las decisiones que se tomen para el servicio del agua va a mejorar, va a ser mucho más innovadora y va a conseguir satisfacer las necesidades reales de los ciudadanos y va a enfrentar problemas como el cambio climático, como la crisis ambiental. Y a la larga esto ayudará a mejorar la justicia social y la cohesión social. Y yo lo dejo aquí y después si queréis podemos hablar más de casos concretos, de indicadores, de observatorios y lo que queráis. Espero haberme ajustado a tiempo, David.
Gracias, Miriam. Es claro que la participación no es una cosa fácil y no es una cosa que puede se implementar rápidamente. Preguntas para ti después por la discusión. ¿De dónde empiezo la participación? Tiene su origen en los representantes de la sociedad civil o de los operadores o del alcalde, los elegidos del consejo de la ciudad. ¿De dónde viene? ¿Cómo asegurar la representatividad y cómo guardarla? Bueno, what we know is that participation is hard to build and easy to destroy. It's like trust. Hard to earn it, easy to lose it. But Miriam, thanks very much. And now we're going to pass, because we still have problems with Benjamin. So we're going to go to Yorgos. Yorgos, you've been introduced. You have some slides, and I'm sure you've got lots of good ideas. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. Very nice to be with you. Yes, I would like to make a presentation regarding one of the projects that the ADAP, which is the Athens, Greece water supply and sewage company, is working on. And I think it's a project that will bring out some issues of participation. So I'll be very happy to share with you. So let me just do the sharing. Okay. All right. So we are going to talk a little bit about the Hadrian's Aqueduct in Athens, Greece. Now, what is that? The Hadrian's Aqueduct is a unique Roman monument. It's an underground aqueduct that crosses Athens, the capital of Greece. It is about 25 kilometers and it connects 8 municipalities, and it still has water. It's a very good example of I'd say a resilient infrastructure, because it still has a water capacity of 1.5 cubic meters per year, that most of it is flushed in the sea. So why haven't we unveiled the monument? First of all, because it's a unique European heritage site. Although it's absolutely under the ground, it's underground, but it's still a great site to unveil. And by unveil, I do not mean excavate, but I mean talk about it. People don't know it in Greece. Visitors come and sometimes they look for it and they can't find it. There's nothing evident of it, almost nothing evident of it. So why haven't we unveiled it? And why haven't we used its water? Now, there are reasons. First of all, is because here in Greece, we really prefer ancient Greek monuments rather than Roman for some reason. That is one reason. And I think another reason is that it's underground and it's just an aqueduct. Well, it doesn't have columns, it doesn't have other elements. So it hasn't been a priority. At the same time, the use of its water, we haven't used its water because we do not have still the culture of using non-potable water in Athens. And Athens Water Company wants to create this culture and wants to help create this culture. So speaking about participation, we are now, in this project, we are doing both. We are unveiling the monument, we are making it known, we are creating an identity around it, and we are using its water. But we are doing that through answering combined challenges of the city. Not only challenges that Athens Water Company would deal with, not only challenges that the municipality or the region would deal with. Combined challenges, and I'm talking about urban heat. We have serious urban heat issues in the Greek capital and along the Hadrian's Aqueduct route. We also have a lot of deserted and little urban space in Athens, And when I speak about deserted, I speak more about regions in the northern part of Attica and Athens, where this aqueduct starts from. We are talking about areas that are really looking for ways to have some sort of commercial output. They don't have people going to their places. We're talking about the Olympic Village, built in the middle of a large space in Attica that nobody goes to. So these guys have very serious financial crisis issues, and they're looking for opportunities to have some sort of mobility in terms of their local market and presence in their neighborhood. And we also have challenges of cohesion. We're talking about Roma areas. We're talking about like areas with a lot of Roma population. We're talking about areas of large variety of income and of social and background. So all these challenges, we thought, why don't we try to help solve these challenges through an integrated approach of this aqueduct? Who gave us this idea? It was not our minds. It was not our, the spirit around us. It was the interest that started appearing when we started mentioning our goals with the Hadrian's Aqueduct. So 9 NGOs in 2 years from local communities contacted us and wanted to work with us. 11 NGOs on environment and culture did that as well. We immediately got the attention of all 8 municipalities and the state, as well as the Ministry of Culture. 24 research and educational institutions from Athens, Greece, and from abroad were interested. And finally, and for me, this is very important, at least 25 ADAP workers volunteered in various works that needed to happen in order to understand what the resource was. When we started this project, we were a very small entity in the company, and we had volunteers. Literally, we had fellow workers working with us because they found it interesting. What did they find interesting? Some found interesting the culture about it. Some found interesting the negative environmental footprint of flushing this water into the sea and trying to find a way to get this water into use. This water is water that infiltrates from groundwater into the canal of the underground water Roman aqueduct. So various reasons why people were interested. Some of these people were interested because in their neighborhood, as I said, there was nothing happening and they wanted some cultural action, and this was crossing below them. Some were interested because they really wanted some green spaces and spaces where you can use this water to green your plants without paying ADAP, which is our company, a lot of money for clean water. Some were interested for the energy value of not using potable water for non-potable uses. But regardless of what happened, of what was the reason for each one to join, what happened was that we created a pretty large community, which led to a project that is a European project called Urban Innovative Actions, funded by the EU. And this project was under the cultural strand of the program. And however, it funded, and it still funds, infrastructure about giving non-potable water to the citizens, together with infrastructure for urban development and creating more green and creating places like the one you see in the picture when you actually show the cultural value of what's underneath the city. And it also funded us to create a water community of citizens, something really unheard of for ADAP and for Athens Water Company. We've never thought that we would contribute to creating something like a water commons culture in a neighborhood. And yet we did. You see, drop a message. This was a digital application that we used in order to gather people to join this community. You see the partners in this project, the municipality of Halandri, the archaeological F48, our company, cultural groups, environmental groups, collectives for participatory urban design, architectural firms, really things that our company never thought of, ways of thinking that we never thought of joining. We only started there because we were really enthusiastic to go to the next step. And so we are now filing an application that has to do with a complete integrated territorial development plan on the route of this hydrogen aqueduct, 25 kilometers, where the region of Attica is going to be there to create urban development full of green and blue spaces. The Ministry of Culture will make sure that this underground, unseen cultural resource will become the local identity and also will create interest from the international community. ADAP will make sure that we will provide water that is less energy costly, and it's less also costly for the pockets of the people and used for non-potable resources. And this will be the first non-potable network that we will build in the whole of Attica, for many more to follow from other resources like wastewater resources and something like that. And we are also very much focusing on creating a community that will help this project be sustainable when it's built. Because our problem in Attica is we make urban development and we create beautiful spaces, but then there is no ownership of these spaces. So really the attention to water is a way. When we started speaking about this project and we're talking about water, that was a way to drive interest from the people. At the same time, some people were interested, as I said, from the cultural aspect of it. So joining forces, seeing the project not from strictly our point of view when we started, but going some steps up and seeing what else can happen with this project and who else can we put to participate in this project. We created a community. We helped create a community that now drives us. It is because of what they ask in the meetings of the water community that we get inspired and we go to the next steps. I want to emphasize this issue because for me, it's, speaking from the Department of Innovation and Strategy, we very rarely think of social innovation in firms like, and in companies and in utilities like water utilities. But water is highly a substance that you can use for social innovation because it really, really speaks to people. So when we decided that we created the project not only dedicated to bringing water from this underground resource to the people, but also as a way for us to create a platform for communication and for participation, this really thrived. And I think we are going to be creating something really important for the Athens and Attica area, dealing with its resilience to urban heat, urban regeneration, water resource management, cultural management, and community cohesion. This is what participation has done to us through this project, and I just wanted to share it as an example. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yorgos, that's quite inspiring. Again, for your consideration, I mean, my very first reaction after your first 30 seconds was, hang on, I've got a Greek talking about Roman stuff, but then you addressed that, so that's good. Okay, we're cool on that. What I wasn't 100% clear about is this, which was sort of a side project. is this going to lead to social involvement in the core functions of ADAP? Or is that just too big a monster? And I don't want you to answer now, just to think about how you take this. Yeah, this was a side project for you guys because you weren't even using the water for anything. And so, it's written on it's probably 5% of your work or 2% of your work on the side of your desk. Are you going to be able to make that into something that is a little bit more, about core business? And I promise I won't talk too much about privatization in Athens or Thessaloniki as a form of corruption of the political process by the Troika. No, I won't talk about that. Okay, so I promise not to do that. Now, look, our next one, and I know she's lined up ready to go, is Lisa. And I actually like to switch between men and women presenters. I think it's good. So, Lisa, I'm going to give you the floor. I'm not going to see if Benjamin has managed to connect. I sort of see him, but not really. So he's got your presentation time to get ready, but please take your time, Lisa, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, David. Very happy to be here. So I'm trying to share my screen and going to the full screen. Not yet, but now. Okay. Perfect. So you can see me well or my presentation.
Yes.
Perfect. So I will very briefly introduce the UNITAC, which I'm representing today, and say just a very few words about smart city concepts in general, and then come to practical examples for digital innovation in the WASH sector that can improve transparency, accountability, and participation. And we already heard a few examples also of digital innovation today. So I think I can add to that. But first, starting with the UNITAC, it's the UN Innovation Technology Accelerator for Cities in Hamburg, a fancy name. It's a cooperation between UN Habitat, the Hafen City University in Hamburg, and the UN Office for ICT. And we are working at the interface of urbanization, innovation, and technology, and are trying to support the SDGs related to cities and urbanization. By demonstrating the power of digital technologies to solve urban challenges. And we have three main thematic areas. The first one is open, transparent, and participatory governance of data and digital platforms. So the more normative work around data ethics, about privacy, about digital literacy, etc. Then the second one is around mapping, spatial analysis, and data analytics and visualization, very straightforward. And the third one is around people-centered smart cities and communities. So everything around participation, quality of life, etc. So that's already it about the UNITAC. And coming now, a few words about smart cities. There's a lot of promises related to smart cities. So smart is often presented as the new solution to all kinds of urban development challenges. And it's promising more efficiency, security, sustainability, livability, equity, everything basically. But the reality often looks different, and there are quite a few risks also related to digital innovation. So there is still an increasing digital divide. Many poor and marginalized groups are lacking access to digital innovations or to digitalization in general. Then technology is also not neutral. It's often there's bias or discrimination embedded. For example, in facial recognition software, it has been proven quite extensively. Then there's, of course, the risk of misuse of technology and data for increased surveillance and control. And more becoming apparent are also the sustainability issues in the digital technology value chain, not only related to the enormous amounts of energy needed for those data centers, but also related to the extractive industries and also the e-waste that is often shipped back to African countries. So the whole value chain is facing a lot of sustainability issues. So there has been the approach to move this smart city approach to a more people-centered approach that is supporting privacy and human rights and is more focused on inclusion, on ethics and quality of life and human rights. And that's also what the UNITAC is trying to focus on with its work. And that's it for the theoretical context. Let's look at some practical examples of different types of participation and how that can make a difference. So the first example I want to show is a very simple one, the locations in the UK. It's a open source map where users can enter locations of public toilets, and they are that's publicly available information that citizens are participating in the data collection, and that is improving the access to sanitation services. So a very simple and straightforward example. The next one is a project that we are actually also involved in, which is called DPAS, the Digital Participation System. It was developed together with the city of Hamburg and is now widely used for their participation processes. It's a combination of online participation and on-site participation, and it's usually embedded in a process that's running for several months. So there's a first phase where the online tool is open and people can just enter their contributions. In the second phase, then there are some actual workshops where focus topics that came up in the online phase are deepened and are discussed in more detail. And then there's the detailed planning coming after that. And it's now used as a kind of a standard for participation processes in the city. It's based on the urban data platform in Hamburg. So how does it work? You can actually, you see here the map, you can retrieve different data and project information on the area that is being opened for participation for a specific project, and that is connected to this urban data platform. And then you can give geo-referenced feedback on planning proposals. You can compare and discuss different draft plans, and you can also comment and like the contributions of other users. So, for example, you could collect information on where regular flooding happens through this through this map.
Je vous laisse, je vous rappelle si ça pose un problème, ok?
Okay, someone was talking.
Lisa,
Maybe you
Lisa,
can.
that's Benjamin talking.
Oh, great to hear.
We have him, but please don't stop. You're on a roll, so keep going. More Benjamin for now.
Just worked. I didn't expect it, so apologies for the trouble, and I'm so glad to be able to join you properly.
No problem. I'm happy to hear that you are on board now, and I will just continue. So, so this is a great tool to harvest citizens' knowledge and ideas, and to also increase the transparency in the planning process. It's also this combination of the online and the on-site process is also helping to include voices of people who have previously been excluded because they could, for example, not participate in the evening events that are part of, like, let's say, normal participatory processes. And it has improved the communication between the administration and the public. And it's actually a completely open source tool. So the software is published on the website you can see here. Yeah, so just a short summary of the points. And the last project I wanted to present, it's called Majiwazi. It's an exploratory pilot project for connected and collaborative water distribution in informal settlements in Nairobi, and was a cooperation between UN Habitat, Nairobi Water, and Ericsson Research. We already heard earlier today about the some of the problems also in Nairobi informal settlements, and I'm showing some of them again here. So there's, of course, a big lack of access, and there are different informal solutions, but which are often a lot more expensive than people are paying in informal neighborhoods. So that's a big problem, besides, of course, all the problems related to governance that Barbara has also mentioned. And so the project is, the concept combines multifunctional sensors to monitor the water supply, because also, as you saw on the previous picture, a lot of the pipes are broken. There's a lot of water that is not ending up in with the users. So it's combining these sensors to monitor the water supply with an innovative ICT-based governance model, where the residents are in the local community are actually employed as service engineers. So that's a very specific setup, and we will look at how that actually works. So the sensors, you see an example here of one of the sensors. If, for example, the battery is low, so that it doesn't work very well anymore, a message is sent to one of the citizen field observers, that's what they called them, who gets a message and can then check on the battery and load it. And these messages are sent by Nairobi Water, by the back office, who is monitoring the system and sending out the work orders that need to be done. So also, for example, when a pipe is broken, a local handyman gets the message that the pipe is broken, can then fix the pipe, and receives actually a mobile payment directly through his or her phone. And and the end user can buy the water at one of those water kiosks, and can also do the payment via a mobile payment service, which is a very transparent and affordable solution. And this smart water management is integrating the technological innovation to monitor the water resources, to diagnose problems and improve efficiency, and coordinating also this whole management system of the field engineers, etc. And that is helping to overcome supply challenges and strengthen public participation in the governance. You see here a bit the setup with the handyman, the field observers, the actual users, and the kiosk operators in the community, and then the service provider. And just to sum up, so it's a way how citizens can participate in the maintenance, how transparent cost models can be implemented, and how availability, affordability, and quality of the water service can be improved. And I think having the citizens involved can also be a way of mitigating the risks mentioned by Barbara with the cartels, etc. So I think these examples show how digital innovation can actually contribute to improved transparency, accountability, and participation. And I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. That was quite impressive. As you very clearly said at the outset, smart cities can be a double-edged sword. And I know there's heavy upfront investment in some of these, which of course can be outside of the utilities budgets. We've seen, the growth of prepaid meters and smart meters, where the question is that the priority investments? So there's a lot of those sort of issues that I think you alluded to, and that I'm sure with every smart city, we've got to be constantly monitoring it. And one of the things I'd like you to think about is any way to use these digital tools to look at the finance ministries and to ensure that the money that is supposed to go to the municipal utilities actually gets there. Now, I'm not saying you hack into the finance ministry, but it would be interesting. And also the question of affordability. What is affordability? That one I don't expect you to answer that, but maybe we can touch on that. Now it is with great pleasure to announce he actually, believe it or not, was our second speaker, but he has moved mountains to be with us. So Benjamin, qui va nous parler en anglais, who is going to do his presentation in English, which is a little bit of a surprise for me because most Parisians, they don't speak English unless they have to. Sorry.
I don't, David.
Yes, but we have interpreters ready for you. But Benjamin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, David.
I hope you managed to share your screen with us.
Yeah, I can do that myself, no problem. I hope it works. I've been through lots of difficulties to join you and to be able to listen to you and to speak to you and so on. So I hope it's working now. Let me know if it's not the case. Can you see my screen, everybody?
And here you go to presentation.
So it's full screen now. So, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for joining late.
Benjamin, c'est pas parfait. You have to click. Something about screen in the bottom. Barbara was the one, our tech expert, who was telling us how to do it, because we're seeing both your slides on the left and your smaller side.
I'm currently.
When you go to share screen and it gives you a drop-down menu, you need to go right down to the bottom and share your screen. Don't share your presentation.
Okay. And I'll do that. Sorry for that. I have to share the whole.
Barbara, did you know that you'd be the tech expert on this platform?
Let me know if it's better.
Tech expert who couldn't get her own slides up. That one.
It should be better.
Bingo. On the air.
Thank you for your help, Barbara. So sorry for joining late, and I missed more or less the whole of the conversation before. So I hope what I'm going to say is not going to fall flat. My focus will be on participation. I'll come back to the reason why I decided not to talk to you about transparency or accountability too much in a few seconds. Before I just get started, maybe a few words and a couple of images about Eau de Paris for those of you who do not know us. Eau de Paris in a coat of arms and in a map. A coat of arms, just to say that we are the Parisian water utility under the City of Paris, 100% public, 100% democratically controlled by elected officials, but also by the people of Paris through several mechanisms, which I'm going to describe briefly in a minute. And we're also striving on a daily basis to reconcile the City of Paris with water. As you see in the Paris coat of arms, the relationship between Paris and waters, different kinds of water, has been a versatile one, hence the Paris Nave shaken by the flow of a river. So we're striving to get Paris, the Parisians, and water together, united. This map on the right side of your screen is to say that when you cater Paris with fresh water, you don't work only in Paris, you work at a much wider scale, and you need to engage with lots of different territories and lots of different people. So when we talk about participation in Paris, we're not talking only about Paris and the Parisians, we're also talking about people living far away from Paris. And to give you a sense of scale, the distance between the westernmost point on your map and the easternmost point is slightly over 300 kilometers. So it's a lot of people we have to engage with when you want to deal with water in Paris. And that's also a challenge for us. Why am I going to talk about participation more than transparency and accountability? Because I do think, and I'll come back to that in a few seconds, that transparency and accountability are not so much of a problem for Eau de Paris and the management of water in the Paris city, because they are inbuilt. They were designed from the inception of Eau de Paris some 10 years or 11 years ago. So I'm going to focus on participation. We have challenges to foster public participation in the water services everywhere, but I'm going to talk about the Paris example, which is the example of a major city in a developed country. Some of the challenges we have to face are specific to the water sector. Water, drinking water, is not a simple thing. It's very technical. So engaging people, I mean the everyday people, in getting some interest into the way we manage the service when it's technically complex is a challenge for everyone. The second challenge we have is that water services in Paris are invisible and nowhere, because for some reasons in Paris, people don't pay directly their water bills. They pay their water bills through their general charges in the buildings they live in, and also because it works well. Water services in Paris are continuous, the quality of water is good, so you don't see any problem. So why bother about it? And that's the last specific challenge that we have to face and address is why try to fix it if it's not broken? Water services are working well, so why would the Parisians take some interest in them? But we still think at Eau de Paris and at the city of Paris that engaging with people is key for a more sustainable, more equitable, more solid in solidarity management of water services. And of course, we have to face more general challenges, and you all know about that. I'm just going to quote them very briefly. The first one is people have a lot of information to deal with at this era of digitalization of our societies. There's lots of info, there's lots of news every day coming to us. Why would we bother about news about water services where there's so much to listen to, watch on the net, and so on and so on? The second challenge we have to face, which is a global one, and it's not only in the developed countries, is the growing distrust towards institutions and the media. People don't trust the information they get from official channels anymore, which is very difficult if you want to engage them into dealing with the public services in general and water services in particular. And the last challenge we have to face is like growing loss of interest for traditional forms of participation. And I just got one number here, 34.69%, which is the turnout at the French 2021 regional elections last June. Two electors out of three didn't come to vote. How do you want them to come to try and get some participation in water services that actually work? So that's a picture we have to deal with. And these are the ways we have been trying to deal with them, with the situation since the inception of Eau de Paris. Transparency, accountability, and participation by design. I just want to pay a tribute to those who conceived, those who brought to existence Eau de Paris 15 to 12 years ago. And amongst them is Anne Lestrade, who is amongst us. And I'd like to say a very big thank you and a very big round of applause for Anne, this participation ID was at the stem of a project. It's been one of the real drivers for creating Eau de Paris some 10 years ago. So it's easier if you do it from scratch, if you do it from the start. And it's been beautifully thought of, it's been beautifully discussed and discussed also with the Parisians. The result is that our governance is open from the beginning. It's designed to be open to lots of stakeholders and especially the citizens of Paris through different mechanisms. One of them, and I like to quote this, saying, citizens aboard, citizens on the board. We have representatives of the Parisians in our board of administrators. And actually, they actually vote for the budget, they vote for all the main guidelines and strategies that drive our activities on a daily basis. It's not only about consulting with the people, it's bringing them inside the governance mechanisms. And that's what we did at Eau de Paris, with citizens being members of the board. The second thing we've done from the beginning is to engage with Parisians wherever they are. We're going to see them, we're going to talk with them, we're going to participate in lots of events on the public space, we're going to see them in the schools, we're going to see them wherever they are. You can't just wait for citizens to take some interest into your activities, you need to go forward to them. And last but not least, and it's part of the initial model of Eau de Paris, the city of Paris has implemented, besides Eau de Paris, an NGO called l'Observatoire Parisien de l'Eau, the Parisian Water Observatory, which has been consulted on all the big decisions made for the water services and sanitation services in Paris since it's been put in place in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. So we share views and we share strategies with representatives of the citizens of Paris through that Parisian Water Observatory, which has become kind of a landmark in the way water services have been conducted since. And we've been recognized by the United Nations. The picture you have on your right is the diploma we got at the 2017 United Nations Public Service Awards ceremony. And it's been a great honor for me to receive the award on behalf of Eau de Paris. And I would like to thank David because I think he was quite instrumental of getting this recognition given to Eau de Paris. So that's what we've been doing for 12 years, but it's not enough to face the new challenges we have to face, and especially to attract some interest for what we do at Eau de Paris when there's so much to see, so much to do, so much to participate in everywhere in the digital society we live in. So we're trying to put things forward. We're trying to always implement new schemes, new initiatives to foster public participation in Eau de Paris's activities. The first thing we're doing is to go digital because everyone is now their eyes like mesmerized by the different screens we look at every day: phones, laptops, tablets, TVs, and so on. So if you want to get some participation into your water services, you need to go digital. So that implies the fact that we need to be social network savvy, techno savvy, more generally speaking. And I've been spending more than an hour with my IT people to be able to join you. So I feel we're a little bit savvier now than I was an hour ago. And the good thing about the digital communication is that you can target your audience. You don't speak in the same way to your target audience on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, or LinkedIn, or other social networks we use. So you can try and focus on targeted audiences. And obviously, we want to reach the younger people, which is why we have a very active account on Instagram, for example, and you can propose them activities that actually find an echo in their way to behave and to consume information as well. Out of the walls, the traditional ID in lots of water services I've seen across Europe, for example, is to have some kind of museum, some kind of place where they display what they're doing in a pedagogical way, which is a good thing to do. It's not enough anymore because people don't go out the same way they used to. And in big cities like Paris, there's lots of competition to attract people to cultural places and so on. There are lots of museums, there are lots of movie halls and so on. So you need to get out of your walls, and that's what we're trying to do at Eau de Paris. So we go in the classrooms themselves, and we got a very nice picture of one of the staff members, Seta. She's the lady in the picture on the top left corner of the set of pictures you have on your screen. And Seta and some of her colleagues go actually into the classrooms of the Parisian school to go and talk to the pupils there where they are. We also use third places. We try to be present where people actually go. And the picture you have on the top right corner of the screen right now is the Academy of Climate, which is a new place just incepted by the city of Paris to sensitize people about climate change and how we can fight against it and how we can adapt to it. So we go to these places. So we go to where people go. And we also go away from the city. If you remember the map I've shown a few minutes ago, we also need to sensitize people in the catchment areas, 150 kilometers away from Paris, about the way we need to protect the water resources. So that's also something to do. So we go far away from where we are. We go far out of our walls. If you want to engage with people, like public debates, public meetings, and stuff like that, they don't work anymore really. And we've always found difficulties to attract people to these kinds of traditional ways of interacting with citizens. So we're in the process of designing a new collaborative platform. We work with an NGO to do that, and the idea is to identify very precisely in which way people want to be talked about water, in which way people want to be to show some commitment to water services. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We target audiences and we design specific ways to interact with them. So what we are doing on the social networks now, we're going to try and do it in the actual real life, if that means anything anymore. And last idea and last projects we are currently implementing, we want people to decide. Some citizens representatives are on our board, but it's not enough. We want other people to decide. We want everyone to decide. Everyone who is interested, actually. So we're going to implement next year the first water participatory budget in Paris. I don't know if there are other experiences of participatory budgets specialized on the water services, but we're going to do that in Paris. We're going to use a new scheme that was devised by the city of Paris, which is called Volontaires de Paris, Volunteers of Paris. So we're going to try and lure these volunteers into helping us with some of our activities. For example, going to plant some trees and hedges in the catchment areas to protect water resources. And we're going to start that with our own staff. So we need to lead by example. And actually, staff members of Eau de Paris are very committed to water services. That's the least I can say about them. So we're going to show how this can be done by anyone. And then we're going to go back to Parisians and ask them if they're ready to follow us. Key messages from that very short and I hope clear presentations. TAP should never be taken for granted, especially where and when water services are granted or taken as granted. I mean by that, because it's so easy to open your tap water and use it, it means that it's more difficult to engage people into participating into water services and the way they're managed now and tomorrow. You need to integrate TAP in your governance, and if you can do it from the start, from the inception of the water utility you're using for your water services, it's better. But if you can't do that, then you need to think about way to integrate it progressively. And lastly, participation cannot be imposed nor decreed. You can say you Parisians come and participate into our activities, come and participate into our participatory budget. You need to engage with them in very specific ways. You need to engage with them in the way they want to be engaged with, and you can't impose that on citizens. And I think what is true of the Parisians, we're a big bunch of grouch people. It's also true of lots of people around the world. Thank you very much for listening to me, and sorry for being late. And I'm done.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. I think the wait was worth it. And now let me just say that all of our speakers had a lot to share. In terms of Paris, I'm sure you're aware of Porto Alegre and their Orçamento Participativo, where they had specific experience in controlling the water utilities budget through a participatory mechanism. I know also that there's a big emphasis within Eau de Paris to reach people who don't have phones, don't have homes, don't have fixed addresses. And I'm sure that's a big challenge, is a constituency that you have to make efforts to reach. And I think overall, one of the challenges with the public not-for-profit utilities is how to market yourself, how to make yourself visible and make yourself desirable and attractive and all that stuff that the ad men and ad women have been doing for us for 70 years, but for stuff we don't really need. Now, part of the problems with this digital platform, and Lisa, maybe you know how to fix this, because given you're the digital kid here, is we can't see the participants. And so we don't know if they want to engage us. We've gone through an hour and a half of talking at them. Nobody stuck to time. Absolutely nobody. And I did not cut you off because, well, it's Friday afternoon here. I feel like a nice guy. Normally I would have. But the floor now is open. I think I saw Yorgos said he wanted to say something. Did I see that? Something flashed across my screen saying Yorgos wants to speak. But unless I see messages from the audience, Q&A, something they want to share with us, I'm just going to keep with this little group we have here. Yorgos, if it's true that you wanted to speak, or was that something that you pressed by accident?
No, I didn't do it, but I do have something to say regarding.
You always do.
Yeah, regarding the last presentation. This is very impressive, this work, and I'm very interested on it. I'm here from the Athens Water Utility in Greece, and my question is, all this community participation, does it help you run the company or the utility better? And it also helps you understand water management issues. What I'm asking here is how much of the input that you get from participation goes towards managing your networks better, and how much, and providing water to the people you provide water to, and how much does it go to visions and plans about water management in general in your area or in other areas? How does it go? How does participation work in those two fields?
Okay, I think the question is directed to me. Several answers to this global question of how public participation influences or impacts the way we manage the service. It reminds us, like staff members in a water utility, especially the public one, but we are here to serve the people. So we need to hear from the people whatever they have to say, to keep in mind that we're here for them. We're not here for the pipes. We're not here for the treatment plants. We're not here for ourselves. We're here for people where we are at the other end of a pipe network. That's first answer. It's very general, but it's very important because sometimes we tend to be too technical and we tend to forget why we're doing things. And people are here to remind us of why we're doing things. Secondly, from a very strategic point of view, it's very important to listen to what the people have to say because they can basically tell you if you're going into the right, very broad, very strategic direction. What I mean by that is that if we didn't listen to what people have to say, we might miss something very important, which is, for example, in Paris, that the sustainability in every meaning of the term of the way we run water services appears to be the top priority of our users. The Parisians, when you ask them what they want, when you interact with them, they say we want something that is sustainable. We want Eau de Paris and the city of Paris to take care of the water resources, and we don't want you to go for the latest technology. We don't want you to go for the latest digital connected thing. We don't want you to do like some trendy, flashy IoT digital thing. We want you to be sustainable. We want you to take care of the water for the next generations, for our children and grandchildren. So, strategically speaking, when you speak to people in Paris, and maybe the situation is different somewhere else. I don't know about other cities, but in Paris, what they tell you is that they want us to be as sustainable as possible. And thirdly, let's stop there because I don't want to be too long. They help us to fix the boundaries as far as like big issues are concerned. And what I mean by that is especially the price of water, the affordability of water. How much is affordable for the Parisians to pay for their water bills? If you don't interact with them on this subject, it's very difficult to tell. If you ask one elected official, he or she can say it's that much. If you ask another elected official from a different party, he or she can say no, it's less than that, and so on and so on. It can go in rounds forever. So at some point, you need to discuss that directly with the people who pay, people who are represented by elected officials, but we will also have to speak directly on matters that concern them very immediately. And I'll stop there because I could obviously go on that.
Thanks, Benjamin. And Yorgos, if I'm not mistaken, ADAP is listed on the stock exchange. And that means that the one of the main participants in your decision makings is the shareholders who want to extract dividends. How does that affect your operations and the wish to actually deal with the users as opposed to the shareholders who want your money?
Yes, you're right, David. This is how it is. However, the company is still owned mostly by most of the more than 50% of the stakehold of the shares are held by the public. So it's still a public company. It is true that what Eau de Paris is telling us is something very interesting that we should look into. I put very much attention on the sustainability factor because I think that this is a common goal for everyone. I mean, this is exactly the factor that unites everyone. You need to be sustainable. You need to be providing sustainable services. So I totally see how you can focus on participation strategies with that goal. This is something that we can do even though we are in the stock exchange, and I think it's a very good idea, and I would very much like to learn more about it.
Now, for our panelists, there is a raise lower hand button. And unless I see a raise lower hand button, I may start provoking some comments. So I'm still not seeing them. Barbara, I see in your face you want to speak. Okay, there you go. Barbara, please. We have about 15 minutes left, and I'll try to keep 5 minutes for a final 1 minute blurb from everyone. Barbara, please.
Thanks very much, David. And in the interests of the translator's sanity, I will try to talk slower this time. And thanks very much to everybody for the very interesting presentations. I wanted to respond to some of the questions that you had raised earlier arising from my presentation. And I think one of the things you raised was the question of the relationship between low staff salaries and corruption. And it's an interesting one because we talk about two different forms of corruption, grand corruption and petty corruption. Grand corruption, which is the big scale stuff that is the really where the bulk of the money goes and where the bulk of the big impacts are, is not in any way related to salaries. A lot of that is actually driven by people who earn perfectly good salaries, whether they're politicians or senior government officials or people in the private sector. So at that end of the scale, the issue of salary has absolutely nothing to do with it. It's really driven by greed. But at the other end of the scale, where you're talking about the utility customer interface or citizen interface, the petty corruption side of things, then there is some evidence that salaries play a role in the level of corruption, with people trying to increase their income through corrupt activities. The evidence also seems to show, however, that simply increasing salaries doesn't actually reduce the level of corruption. You have to introduce other mechanisms with it, including issues of accountability and monitoring. I saw a very interesting interview with somebody in one of the Kenyan water utilities, one of those lower level officials who admitted that he had been involved in corruption and taking money and bribes, and had gone through a process actually run by a Japanese group to understand how he fitted into the organization and how his actions actually impacted on the organization. And it was a very interesting process of bringing people to really understand, lower level staff to really understand their position as cogs in the organization and in the financial viability of the organization. And a statement from him realizing that actually he now understood and actually realized what he'd been doing to the organization that he was dependent on for salary and how that had shifted his behavior. So I think it's not purely related to salary. You did ask other questions, but I'll stop there in the interests of giving other people time to talk as well.
Thanks, Barbara. Yeah, look, the question about the relationship of the workers to management and then to the community they serve is essential. And I think when you've got a customer focus, then that's a different set of dynamics in people's heads. Whereas when you have not even citizens, because, for example, while every big water utility is responsible for providing water to all those in its geographic remit, whether they have the right to live there or not, in other words, whether they rent, own, or are homeless. And I know that was one of the big pieces that Paris was confronting, but I suspect everybody. Now, Benjamin, I have to correct you on one thing. When you said that I had a significant role in your prize with the UN, I didn't. All I did is I opened the door, and you guys did the work. And the work you did was quite amazing, I must say. So I take zero credit other than facilitating. Lisa, please, you have the floor.
Thanks. I just wanted to to refer to the question you you asked after my presentation about how we can ensure that the money from the ministries is actually ending up with the municipalities and the water operators. And I think one of the key issues there is open data and also publishing federal and municipal budgets and being transparent about those. And maybe just as an example, Hamburg is quite advanced there. They have this, which I mentioned, the open data platform and the related transparency law, that all data that does not contain any personal information, of course, or any information that is somehow security related, etc., has to be published by the districts and by the different municipal departments, and that gives us as researchers quite a nice basis of data also for all our projects, and it also gives private companies new options for business models using those data, etc. So I think open data and transparency laws are quite crucial for this question. And one thought I had, I read about a software that was developed, I think, by KfW, which is called True Budget. It's a software based on blockchain technology that is trying to actually solve this problem, this transparency or corruption problem for development projects, but can also be used, of course, for other projects. And every step, the procurement, the payments, etc., is documented through this blockchain technology and is then transparent for all the participants and cannot be manipulated or changed by any of the actors. So that could be a solution. I don't know more about it, but I thought I mentioned it as an option.
Thanks, Lisa. Look, I think that the type of data, who gets access to it, who's trained to use it, these are the key questions, because you can dump tons and tons of data. I remember working with the regulators in one country, and who said, I was related to the private operator of the water system, who said, look, they dump so much data on us, it's a game. And so the quality of the data, the type of data, and who gets access to it. Let me see, I'm tempted to ask Miriam a question about Barcelona, because I know that the city of Barcelona, even though their water system is operated by a private company, they have a lot of citizen-focused initiatives. And so are there lessons that we can draw from possibly other initiatives in Barcelona? And you have about a minute to tell us what gems you've been working on there, because there really is some cool work. Miriam, please.
Thank you, David. We've been fighting for a long time for municipalization in Barcelona, and a recent Supreme Court decision from 2019, before COVID, make it very, very, very difficult. So now we are in a situation similar to Berlin, when Berlin made the referendum and municipalized, but there is a lack of political will to do that for the moment. So what we are working in from the civil society is developing a proposal of an observatory inspired by Paris, but also by Terrassa. And at the moment, we are developing a system of indicators in order to work into transparency, and we are thinking on how to do this transfer of information, because when you have private operator, the main problem is that you lack all the information from the system. So we cannot think, we are thinking on this observatory, but what we need is to think also how we are going to do all this transfer of information, no? How we are going to make it, make that the data is it's owned by the public administration, no? So this is the main problem I think we are facing right now. That's why we are working in a system of indicators which which we think it will help this water observatory to do this. But we have a lot of challenges in this way. But that was why I was so interested in listening to Benjamin's presentation, because I think Eau Paris is also rethinking on how this relation with the citizens must be built. And this is one of the main things that we are thinking of also, no? Which are the things that citizens want to participate and in the water cycle, because there are things, no? In Barcelona, for example, people are worried about the quality, the taste of water, and this is related to the processes, and this is related to the origin of the water. So there are things that people want to speak about if you give them the right information and you give them the information to have a debate, a strategic debate about that. So what we need to do is think how to do it.
Thanks. And as Lisa hinted, data is king nowadays, and queen and prince. Data is the most valuable asset on the planet, and so we have to be very aggressive. Did I see that Benjamin wanted the floor? We're 3 minutes out. So Benjamin, did you want to say something quickly?
Just to add very quickly on what Miriam said about the kind of system we had with the Parisian Observatory. Even Barcelona is going to emulate, which is a very good idea. The difficulty you might encounter with such committees is that they tend to be very stable over time, and initially they have a full force and the full enthusiasm of a new body, of a new group of people exchanging ideas together. And after some time, the same people might have the same ideas. So you need to either renew them, which is kind of difficult sometimes. But in Paris, we have faced difficulties renewing members of the Parisian Observatory, because it's an NGO, so it has its own life, which is good. So what we're trying to do is to complement the observatory system with a more direct and a more frequently renewed approach to citizens' participation. And that's the idea. We have to work with an NGO. The NGO is called We Share, and they have crafted lots of very ingenious systems of participation, and that's one way to complement an observatory kind of system.
Benjamin, thank you very much. Those actually are the final words from our panel. And I will turn it over to Anne Lestrade to make all the thanks and the final conclusions and all that good stuff. But it's been my pleasure to be your moderator. And I was very gentle on some people. There you go. Over to you, Anne. Thanks very much.
So thank you very much, David. You are always a very gentle guy. So it was very interesting debate, and thank you very much for all the speakers, and special thanks to the moderator and also to Florencia. Florencia, sorry for not spelling very well. Because she's in the backstage, and she has taken a lot of notes, and we will do like a reporting note for about our session, because I actually a lot of very interesting ideas, very interesting initiative we can also share, not only among us but also also for a broader audience. So this session has been recorded. So of course, it's also the opportunity to share in your networks. And thank you very much for having focused on participation and sustainability, also to show very different and diverse experiences and initiative on the ground to show that it's possible to connect public participation, if citizens' commitment with challenges the utilities are facing. And I think it's a very, very important to connect this both issue, participation, governance, and sustainability for operators and for utilities. So thanks again. And now we have a little video played by EB team about GWOPA. Thank you very much and see you soon, all folks. Bye. Thank you.
What? Already over?
No, we have plenty more options to continue the discussions and peer exchange beyond the Congress.
Tell me more. What are the options?
Well, GWOPA membership, for example. By becoming a member of GWOPA, everyone can connect to a global alliance of practitioners and experts. There are 2 ways of becoming a member. First, institutional members. Institutions can participate in GWOPA's assemblies and are eligible to run and vote in its international steering committee elections. Or second, individual members. Individuals can connect and engage with peers in the online GWOPA community. We have created a space that allows for networking and easy communication. Meet future WOP partners, stay up to date on project opportunities, and participate in peer-to-peer learning opportunities.
Sounds great. How can I join?
Simply go to www.gwwopa.org and register for free. If you want to know more, you can follow GWOPA on social media and subscribe to the newsletter. Thanks for joining the 4th Global TOPS Congress. We'll see you soon.